The rain was falling softly over the countryside, washing the earth with silver light. Inside a small home, Diep sat with little Nee, the 3-year-old girl who had become her shadow, her laughter, her joy. They spent the morning in gentle rhythms feeding chickens, picking fresh vegetables, cooking rice, and sharing slices of fruit. Outside, the storm made the world feel distant, but inside the walls, there was warmth. James had promised Diep over the phone that he would not return for several more days. He spoke of paperwork, business, endless duties. Yet in truth, he had already landed at Neubai Airport that very morning. He wanted to see her eyes when he walked through the door, wanted to feel her surprise, her joy, and maybe, just maybe, catch a glimpse of the life he had always dreamed of. On his way from the airport, he stopped to buy clothes for a little girl, a yellow dress, a small hat, a white shirt with tiny flowers. He imagined Nee's delighted face, her small hands tugging at the fabric. At a flower stall, he chose a bouquet of fresh blooms, vivid, fragrant, alive. He carried them with a heart beating faster than it had in years. When James finally stepped into the house, Diep froze in astonishment. He stood there, drenched from the rain, but smiling, his arms full of gifts. "I couldn't stay away," he said, his voice soft. Nee's eyes widened as James knelt down and held out the clothes. "For you," he whispered. The little girl squealed with joy, clutching the dress to her chest. That evening, as they sat together at the table, sharing rice and vegetables, James felt something shift. The simple meal tasted better than any banquet. The laughter of Diep and the small giggles of Nee filled the house like music. He had faced countless meetings, contracts, and deals in his life, but nothing compared to this moment, this fragile peace that felt like home. Then it happened. Nee, her face glowing with innocence, turned to him and said in her small, clear voice, "Dad." The word struck him like lightning, yet instead of pain, it brought a wave of warmth so powerful that his eyes burned with tears. For a moment he could not speak. He simply reached out, lifting her into his arms, holding her close as if he would never let go. Diep sat quietly, watching them, her lips curved into a gentle smile, her heart swelling. In that single instant, she saw what James had always longed for, not just success, not just redemption, but a family. For James, it was the most beautiful moment of his life. He had been called many things before: CEO, boss, leader, but never this. To hear that one simple word from Nee was to discover a part of himself he never knew was missing. Diep's smile lingered as she whispered, "Welcome home, James." And as the rain eased into silence outside, James knew that no matter what storms awaited them in the world beyond, he had found his anchor in a small house on a rainy day. He was finally home. The next morning, the house awoke to the sound of birdsong instead of rain. The sky was clear, the fields glistened with dew, and the air carried a freshness that made everything feel new. James opened his eyes slowly, expecting the cold silence of a hotel suite, but instead hearing the soft clatter of dishes and the sweet giggles of Nee in the kitchen. For the first time in years, he felt as though he belonged somewhere. When he stepped outside the room, he saw Diep kneeling by the stove, preparing breakfast. Her hair was loose, her movements gentle, and her face glowed in the morning light. Beside her, Nee was sitting on a small stool, proudly wearing the yellow dress James had bought. She was stirring an empty pot with a spoon, pretending to help. James leaned against the doorway, watching the scene. It was simple, ordinary, but to him, it was more precious than all the glass towers and offices he had ever owned. "Good morning," he said softly. Nee jumped up and ran to him, her small feet tapping against the wooden floor. She raised her arms. "Hi, Dad, carry me." The word hit him again, but this time, He did not hesitate. He lifted her up and twirled her round, her laughter ringing through the house like bells. Diep looked at them with quiet affection, her heart torn between joy and fear. She knew James carried the weight of the dangerous world outside these walls, and she knew that happiness, as bright as it felt now, could be fragile. They ate together at the small table, rice porridge, pickled vegetables, fresh tea. James fed Nee with a patience that surprised even himself. Every smile she gave him, every clumsy word she spoke, pulled him deeper into a bond he never imagined he could feel. But after breakfast, reality came knocking. His phone buzzed with an urgent message. James's face hardened as he read. Diep noticed immediately. "What is it?" He set the phone down, his jaw tight. "It's John. He's moving faster than I thought. He's already speaking with the investors. If I don't go back to the city soon, everything I built might collapse." The air grew heavier. Diep placed her hand gently on his. "James, you can rebuild a company, but you cannot rebuild a family once it is lost. Don't let the shadows outside steal what you've found here." Her words struck him deeply. He knew she was right, but he also knew John would not stop. And now, with Diep and Nee in his life, he had more to lose than ever before. James kissed Nee's forehead and then looked at Diep, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Whatever happens, I promise you this, I will fight, not just for my company, but for us, for this family." Diep's eyes softened, though worry lingered beneath her smile. "Then we fight together, outside." The sunlight was bright, but far away, in the city, the storm was already gathering. And James understood. The day Nee called him Dad was not only the most beautiful moment of his life, it was also the beginning of a battle to protect that fragile, precious word forever. Days passed with a strange rhythm. In the quiet countryside, James found moments of peace he had never known, helping Diep water the garden, watching Nee chase the chickens, walking along the muddy paths after the rain. At night, they sat together under the soft glow of a lamp, Diep mending clothes while James told stories from faraway places. Yet even in these tender moments, James could feel the storm pressing closer. His phone was filled with calls from his assistant, reports of investors leaving, rumors that John was spreading lies about him. James tried to ignore them when he was with Diep and Nee, but the weight of it all grew heavier each day. One evening, after Nee had fallen asleep, James and Diep sat outside on the porch. The moon was bright above them, casting silver light across the wet fields. Diep leaned against his shoulder, silent for a long time, before finally speaking. "James," she whispered, "I know your world is full of enemies, but you don't have to face them alone anymore. You have me now. You have Nee." James tightened his arm around her. "I'm afraid," he admitted, "not of losing the company, but of losing you. John knows about us. If he ever tries to hurt you." "Diep," his voice broke. Diep turned to him, her eyes steady. "Then protect us not with fear, but with love. We'll face whatever comes together." At that moment, James realized something. Diep was not fragile. She was stronger than most people he had ever met. She had lived through storms, hardship, and loneliness, yet her heart remained pure and giving. She was his anchor. The next day, James made a decision. He packed a small bag and prepared to return to the city. Before leaving, he knelt in front of Nee, who clung tightly to his hand. "Dad, don't go," she said softly, her eyes filling with tears. James's throat tightened. He lifted her into his arms. "I promise I'll come back, Nee. And when I do, we'll never be apart again." Diep stood nearby, her face calm though her heart was trembling. She knew this was the path he had to take. When James kissed her hand before stepping into the car, her smile was brave, but her eyes were shining with unspoken fear. As James's car disappeared down the road, Diep whispered to herself. Come back to us, James. Come back safe, far away, in the city's shadow. John was already waiting, his mind full of schemes, his eyes burning with revenge. He had seen James's weakness now. It wasn't money, or power, or pride. It was love, and John would use that to strike. For James, the battle was no longer just about saving a company. It was about protecting the two souls who had finally given him a reason to call someplace home. And as the night fell over the countryside, Diep held me close and prayed for love, for courage, and for the man who had changed their lives forever. The city felt colder than ever when James returned. The lights of the skyscrapers seemed sharp and distant, and every corner carried whispers of betrayal. His office, once buzzing with energy, was now heavy with doubt. Employees greeted him with polite smiles, but behind their eyes, he could see the fear. His assistant, Tuan, rushed to him with a folder of reports. Sir, more investors are pulling out. The news is everywhere. People believe John's lies that you misused the money for the hydroelectric project. James clenched his fists. And the workers, they're angry, Tuan admitted. Some are demanding their wages. Some are threatening to protest. John is spreading rumors that you abandoned the project on purpose. For a moment, James closed his eyes. He could still hear Nee's small voice calling him Dad, still feel Diep's hand resting gently in his. Those memories kept him from collapsing under the weight of despair. I won't let him win, James said firmly, not this time. That evening, James met with his younger brother in a quiet cafe, far from the company headquarters. The air smelled of strong coffee, and the city noise hummed outside. His brother leaned forward. James, you can't fight John alone. He's dangerous. More than you know. I've heard whispers connections with crime across the border. James's jaw tightened. He already suspected as much. I need proof. Once we expose him, the investors will return, and I'll protect Diep and Nee at all costs. Meanwhile, back in the countryside, Diep carried on with her simple life. She brought vegetables to the market, cared for the chickens, and made sure Nee went to sleep each night with a story. But her heart was never at peace. Every sound of a motorbike in the distance, every knock on the door made her wonder if it was news from James or something far worse. One afternoon, as she returned from the market, she noticed a man sitting near the corner of the street. His clothes were shabby, and he held an old guitar, strumming quietly. She had seen him before, but today his eyes followed her a little too closely. Diep felt a chill, but forced a smile as she walked past, holding Nee's hand. Back in the city, James set his plan in motion. He decided to invest secretly into the same project that John had sabotaged, hoping to draw him out. Late at night, in his office, he spread out documents, tracing money trails, phone numbers, and names. At last, a pattern began to form, a hidden network leading straight back to John. But John was watching, too. He had spies in the company, men loyal to him. One of them whispered into his ear, James is digging, sir. He's closer than ever. John smirked, his cold eyes narrowing. Then it's time to remind him what's at stake. If he doesn't back down, we'll pay his little village a visit. Let's see how brave he is when the woman he loves is in danger. At that same moment, James sat alone by the window of his office, staring at the city lights. He felt the storm closing in, the shadows tightening around him. But in his heart, one image burned brighter than fear: the smile of Diep, the small voice of Nee calling him Dad. They are my strength, he whispered to himself, and I will not let John take them away from me. The war had truly begun.